जय जिनेन्द्र। एक बार पुनः आप सभी उपस्थित पार्टिसिपेंट्स को मेरा सादर प्रणाम और हमारे बीच उपस्थित इस संपूर्ण श्रृंखला के संचालक महोदय परम आदरणीय प्रोफेसर गयाचरण त्रिपाठी सर एवं इस श्रृंखला के वक्ता महोदय परम आदरणीय डॉक्टर पवन जैन जी को भी मेरा बारंबार वंदन। बंधुओं, बीएल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडोलॉजी दिल्ली द्वारा चल रहे इस जैन आर्ट एंड एस्थेटिक्स सीरीज का आज 7वां व्याख्यान होने जा रहा है, जिसमें आदरणीय डॉक्टर पवन जैन जी हम सभी के बीच जैन वास्तुकला पर अपना दूसरा व्याख्यान प्रस्तुत करेंगी। आज के इस कार्यक्रम के मंगल प्रारंभ, स्वागत विधि एवं वक्ता महोदय को आमंत्रित करने हेतु मैं संस्थान के डायरेक्टर महोदय परम आदरणीय प्रोफेसर गयाचरण त्रिपाठी सर को आमंत्रित करता हूं। प्रणाम सर, आप आए और आज के इस कार्यक्रम का शुभारंभ करें।
मंगलम सर्वेशाम, स्वागतम सर्वेशाम। हमारे साथ में जुड़े हुए समस्त विद्वत वृंद का हम अपने संस्थान की ओर से, लहरचंद प्राच्य विद्या संस्थान की ओर से, अर्थात उसके समस्त अधिकारियों और कर्मचारियों की ओर से और उसके उच्चाधिकारियों की ओर से जो अन्यत्र इस समय विद्यमान हैं और वहां बैठे हुए इस भाषण माला का स्वयं आनंद भी ले रहे हैं, उन सब की ओर से आप सब लोगों का स्वागत है। सबसे अधिक हार्दिक स्वागत हम सर्वप्रथम करते हैं आज की विदुषी वक्त्री आदरणीय डॉक्टर पवन जैन का, जिनके भाषण आप हमारी इस भाषण श्रृंखला में, जो जैसा कि अभी बताया गया, जैन कला एवं सौंदर्य बोध, जैन आर्ट एंड एस्थेटिक्स की ये जो भाषण माला है, इसमें प्रारंभ से लेकर के और अंत तक वो जुड़ी रहेंगी और 12 भाषण उनके हैं, जिसका कि 7वां भाषण, जैसा कि आपको बताया गया, आज है, जो कि वास्तु, जैन वास्तु से संबंधित है। विशेष रूप से जैन जो धार्मिक वास्तु है, अर्थात मंदिर वास्तु, उससे मुख्यतः संबंधित है। हम उनका हार्दिक स्वागत करते हैं, उनके अनुग्रहीत भी हैं कि वो इतने विस्तृत रूप में और इतनी गहनता के साथ में वो अपने विषय का प्रतिपादन करती हैं। जैन कला में बहुत ही गहराई के साथ में उनकी पैठ है। पिछली बार आपने देखा कि उन्होंने केवल वास्तु के ऊपर ही नहीं प्रकाश डाला, अपितु जो अलंकरण थे और जो वहां पर मूर्ति शिल्प था, उसके ऊपर भी उन्होंने प्रकाश डाला। तो एक प्रकार से ये वास्तु के साथ साथ, ऐसा नहीं है कि इसमें शिल्प उपेक्षित होता हो, वो भी साथ साथ आ ही जाता है। और पिछली बार जो उन्होंने हमको चित्र दिखाए, उससे तो अधिकांश लोग आश्चर्यचकित रह गए होंगे। मैं स्वयं भी आश्चर्यचकित हो गया था और एक अद्भुत अनुभव था अपने में, जब राणकपुर जैसे मंदिर की इतनी बारीक पच्चीकारी जिसे कहते हैं, वो हम लोगों ने देखी, जो स्तंभों के ऊपर थी। एक स्तंभ को भी, जैसे ग्रीक लोग अपने स्तंभ बनाते थे, तो खाली उस तरह से केवल स्तंभ ही बना करके, सीधे साधे स्तंभ बना करके ही नहीं छोड़ दिया गया। उन खंभों को भी इतना अलंकृत कर दिया गया है कि वो स्वयं अपने में एक जिसे कहते हैं अंग्रेजी में आर्ट ऑब्जेक्ट बन गए हैं। और छत भी जो है वो इतनी सुंदर अलंकृत की गई है, इतनी बारीकी के साथ में अलंकृत की गई है। उसमें कितने तरह के अलंकरण हैं, उसमें फूलों के, पौधों के, इसके अतिरिक्त देवियों के और भी अनेक प्रकार के एक सामान्य जो ज्यामितीय आलेख हैं, वो तो कुल मिलाकर के वो आश्चर्य होता है कि क्या वो लेट करके शिल्पियों ने बनाया या पहले पृथ्वी पर बनाया बैठे हुए और फिर उसको किसी प्रकार से ऊपर स्थापित किया। जो भी हो, लेकिन वो अपने में एक अद्भुत दृश्य था। वो स्वयं मेरे लिए भी एक नया अनुभव था। वैसे मैं एक व्यक्तिगत रूप से कुछ कहना चाहता हूं यहाँ पर। सबसे पहले राणकपुर के इन अलंकरणों से प्रभावित होने का जो अवसर मुझे मिला वो आज से 50-60 वर्ष पूर्व 1963 में था। जो हमारे जर्मन पढ़ाने वाले गुरुदेव थे, वो जब वो भारत की कला के प्रेमी थे और मैं उस समय जर्मनी में था, जब वो लौट करके गए तो उन्होंने ये राजस्थान के मंदिरों के बहुत सारे चित्र दिखाए और हम लोगों को आमंत्रित किया अपने घर में। और वहाँ जो पहली बार मैंने राणकपुर के ये अलंकृत स्तंभ और ये छत वहाँ देखी और देख करके आश्चर्यचकित रह गया, क्योंकि हम लोग तो उत्तर प्रदेश के हैं तो इसलिए राजस्थान जाने का अवसर नहीं मिला फिर। लेकिन ऐसा हुआ संयोग कि उदयपुर विश्वविद्यालय में मुझे पढ़ाने का अवसर मिला और उसके बाद राणकपुर और देलवाड़ा कई बार जाने का अवसर मिला और फिर व्यक्तिगत रूप से इनको देखा। और वो उस समय जो वहां पर खड़े हो जाते हैं, जहां पर खड़े हो जाते हैं वहां से हटने की इच्छा ही नहीं होती। ऐसा लगता है कि उसको देखते रहें, उसको अपने हृदय में उतार लें, आंखों के माध्यम से वो हृदय में प्रविष्ट हो जाती हैं और लगता है कि नहीं, ये दृश्य जो है वो अद्भुत है और ये हमेशा हमेशा के लिए बना रहे। दूसरे कदम को जब आप 2-4 कदम और आगे जाते हैं तो वहां भी ऐसा ही अनुभव होता है। तो इसीलिए पिछली बार मैंने आप लोगों को सलाह दी थी कि जो नहीं गए हैं उन सब लोगों के लिए अगली बार अगर कभी आपको कहीं जाने का अवसर मिले तो यहाँ राजस्थान के ये तो आश्चर्य हैं, भारत के जो आश्चर्य हैं, संसार के जो 7 आश्चर्य हैं, उनके अतिरिक्त जो भारत के अगर 7 आश्चर्यों को गिना जाए तो उसमें ये भी शीर्षस्थ होंगे। तो ये 7वां भाषण हमारी आदरणीय पवन जैन जी का आज होगा। कुल 12 भाषण हैं उनके और ध्यान से उसको सुनिए, इसको भी आप अपने हृदय में उतारिए, क्योंकि इस प्रकार की वक्त्री और इतना अधिक ज्ञान रखने वाली जैन कला के ऊपर, जैन शिल्प, चित्रकला और वास्तुकला के ऊपर आपको सरलता से और कोई नहीं मिलेगी। तो हम लोगों का सौभाग्य है कि उन्होंने ये इस भाषण श्रृंखला में न केवल सहभागिता की अपितु इसमें वक्त्री के रूप में उन्होंने अपनी स्वीकृति दी। इससे हम सब अनुग्रहित हैं और हम आज भी यही आशा करते हैं कि वो हमको बहुत सारी एक नई यात्रा पर ले चलेंगी, जिसमें हमको नया नया अनुभव होगा और वो ऐसा अनुभव होगा जिसे हम अपने हृदय में हमेशा के लिए संजो करके रखना चाहेंगे। तो मैं अब पवन जी से प्रार्थना करता हूं कि वो कृपा करके अपना भाषण आरंभ करें।
Jai Jinendra, everybody, and we are going to start. Let me start sharing. Everybody can see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So today again we are going to talk about, this is the second lecture on Jain temples. Last time we spoke about the very origin of Jain temples, how we related it to the Gyan Kalyanak and the Samvasaran, and subsequently how the Jain temples started, looking more and more like the Brahminical temples. Of course, with a few differences and few peculiarities about the Jain temples, especially the Manstambha that we find in front of Jain temples, or the Devkulikas surrounding the main temple, which kind of they house the 24 jinas and different yakshas and yakshis, etc. So we also saw these temples are very, very well lit. They are open on all 3 sides when it comes to the Nau Chauki or the Mukh Mandap. And why they are so very well lit? Because they are directly related to the knowledge aspect. And we always equate knowledge with the light, isn't it? And that's how we always light a lamp before any such occasion, that we are spreading knowledge. We are spreading light, and that's why Jain temples, unlike the the other Brahmin temples, they are not surrounded by darkness, etc. Okay, and then we also saw the octagonal, the pillars and how they are placed, and those serpentine torrents, how they are connected with each other, and the Vidya Devi figures, that radially how they are ornamented on the ceilings that Professor Tripathi was just mentioning, and the beautiful Nabi Chanda ceilings we saw of Western India, be it from temples of Rajasthan like Dilwara, or temples of Gujarat, Kumbharia, etc. So today, the second lecture on temple architecture, we will cover, it is from northern part of the country, North Indian Jain temples. We will have some temples from Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, but we will start from Bihar, okay, which was actually the hotbed for both the ancient Indian religions, be it Buddhist or Jain. And it seems, I'm saying seem because we as Jains, we do not believe that Mahavir started the religion. So, but historically, we can safely say that both the religions were started in the region of Bihar. Okay, so that's how we are going to move this time, right? So starting from Bihar, of course, one of the most sacred spots of Jains is this Vebhar Hill, which is very close to Nalanda also. And, this is on top of this hill, there are some remains. Actually, there is no extant temple as such, which we can find, but there are only a few ancient remains are there. And there are some sculptures which have been found from this period or from this region, and which belong to the early Gupta period. All right. Of course, the temple consists of the central chamber, and then it is surrounded by the court with rows of cells around them. All right. And the central chamber and the cells are provided with, shallow niches for, housing the different images of deities, etc. Okay. So they actually have images of Parshvanath or Mahavir, or then some of them are seated images, etc., etc. One image is that of Sambhavnath also. So probably we can see some, yeah. So yeah, these are some, I just thought I'll show you two images. So it is very interesting here. She's Yakshi Bahurupini, who is always shown as, lying down. All right. So pedestal of Sambhavnath. And then there is, sometimes a Jain couple is shown with a child under the branch of the tree, etc. So these are some of the sculptures that have come down to us. Then second, we talk about Kundalpur in MP region. This temple particularly, there is again a group of Jain temples belonging to 7th century AD. All right. And when you look at this temple, you will find it is absolutely plain, flat roofed. It is built of, ashlar. Ashlar, we say when, inside there is all kinds of rubble which is filled, but the outside walls are dressed with, different medium. It could be stone or anything. So that's called ashlar kind of construction. Okay. So if you look at this temple, and if any of you have some idea about the early Gupta temple, temple number 17 at Sanchi, it almost looks the same way, because it is very, very unpretentious, just simple two pillars in front, and then there are these two pilasters which are actually part of the wall only. And these pillars are also very, very, simple, very heavy square pillars, and they are only decorated with these ghat pallavas, which you can see very, very faintly here. And then there are some loose sculptures which have been found. This is, you can see, it is placed on a very, very high Jagati or platform, and flat roofed. Okay. So some loose sculptures of Tirthankar and Yakshis, etc., are found with not so much sophistication. And I mean, it's if you look at these sculptures, they are not all that, great to look at, etc. Okay. So this, of course, you are looking at Tirthankar Abhidananath. Yeah, you have monkey as his cognizance here, and then Parshvanath figure here. Okay. Then thirdly, we come to Pithaura, which is in MP, in district Satna. It belongs to 9th century AD. Now you can see some kind of ornamentation that has started to appear, but they are still flat roofed. I mean, we still don't know. Probably there was a shikhar, but from the earliest time that they were discovered, there is no superstructure on these. And you can see a very nicely carved doorway here. I would say, multiple shakhas are there. Then on the lintel or lalat, you have 3-seated images of Tirthankara. At the bottom, you have Ganga Yamuna figures. We spoke about the importance of having the river goddesses on the door jambs, or sometimes they are at the base or pedda region, or sometimes they are on the top of the these door jambs. And then these river goddesses are flanked by the yaksha figure. So on this side, you can see detail of the lalat, and on the lalat, you can see 3 Tirthankar images in Padmasana. So this is of course, the detail of the lower region, where you can see the river goddess and Dwarpala figure. He's holding a gada in one hand, and there is a Nag in the other hand. He's 4-handed. This one, of course, has been lost to us, and she's the river goddess. And surprisingly, during this time, although in Gupta period we always see river goddesses, being shown with their respective, vahanas or vehicles. If it is Ganga, then you will see a makar or a crocodile, and if it is Yamuna, then a kachapa will be seen. But in this temple, somehow they are not to be seen here. Okay. And then we come to the Mala Devi temple in Gyaraspur, again in MP, and it actually dates back to this period, 850 to 900. All right. In fact, there are various inscriptions that have been found in this temple, which tell us about the various pilgrim sites, which have also been recorded in, there is a mention of these pilgrim sites in Mahabharata also. All right. So the temple is dedicated to Adinath. And you can see from this image that it is a rock temple. It is cut out of a living rock. But at the same time, it is unlike the earlier rock temples that we saw. It is a structural temple, just like some of the Ellora temples that we saw, the Chota Kailash and the Indrasabha, which are the structural temples cut out of the living rock. Okay. In fact, it is one of the best examples. It is considered because it has extensive collection of Jain sculptures. In fact, it houses in fact the Yakshi figures which are there outside the walls of the temple, they are labeled, and in fact from the names of those gods and goddesses, we know that probably originally this was a Brahmanical temple, and at a later date, probably it was appropriated by the Jains of the area, etc., etc. So, in fact, there is an inscription which is actually preserved in the British Museum, and which talks about this particular date, and that's how we know about this. Okay. So to understand the temple, I always resort to looking at the plan or the layout, so that it quickly registers in your mind as to how the temple must be looking like. So if you look at this plan, we can easily say, if you look at this portion, which means that it would have looked like this, but we saw that part of the rock is there and the temple is on this side. So this particular part has not been excavated at all. It has been left like this, or probably it got destroyed over the period, because there are ample evidences that there was some because of the weather and other climatic conditions. Thus, sometimes the temples get withered away, or sometimes even due to different iconoclastic reasons, and also sometimes some kind of theft is there, or just to get the sculptures out of the temple. There's a lot of destruction that happens inside the temple. Okay, so it is very famous for its carvings, and mostly they are the representations of the post-Gupta period. Okay, and so looking at the plan, we know this is the porch, or the Mukh Chatushki, as I called it, because it is standing on 4 pillars. This is the Mukh Mandap, main mandap, or Mahamandap, as we call this, standing on 4 pillars here again. And this is the vestibule, which is the connecting part of Mahamandap and the Garbhagriha. And this is the Garbhagriha. And it has 4 pillars inside, which actually normally you don't see these pillars inside the Garbhagriha. You only have the main deity stationed in the center. And then you can easily see these are the different niches here. And we can see it is a Sandhar kind of temple. Why do I say that? Because as you come out of this, there is this gate. Yeah. And you can enter here and do the circumambulation or pradakshina of the main Garbhagriha. Okay. And these are the extensions or the different niches which are there. In fact, if you look at it closely, these are the balconies that you have, the lateral transepts that you see here. And we will see what kind of balconies these are. Okay. And it is also very important to read this part of any plan, so that we are aware of the direction as to where we are looking. So when you say this side is north, and we all know from geography that we are always, the compass will always point towards the north. So once north is fixed, we know this is east. So this temple is east facing. Okay. So this is, I spoke about the basic moldings at the base of the temple, which is called, we first have the Jagati, the platform, then you have the Adhishtan or the Pitha moldings, and then you have the Vedika Bandh. These are in the most evolved temples. Sometimes you will just have one set of moldings. So here you can clearly see the Khura, Kumbha is much, much elongated. Then you have the Kalash. Then the Antarpata is in a kind of a stepped fashion. And then you have the Kapotpalli here, on which you see these many Chandrashalas or the Gavakshas, which have been carved here. And then you also have these figures. These are very, very a different kind of grass mukha. We spoke about the grass mukha motif earlier. If you look at these bulging eyes and the fangs and the vegetation issuing from his, mouth. So this is a very different kind of grass mukha that we have come across from this particular temple. Okay. So I just wanted to explain Kapotpalli. So what is the meaning of Kapotpalli? Kapot means pigeon, kabutar, jisko kehte hain, no? So if you look at this particular region, so normally in temples you have pair of these, sometimes together, and inside the gap of these two, Palli is nothing but a platform. Okay. So, and this is, if you look at some buildings, if you go to any big buildings, and this is where the pigeons will come and, take rest, or you will find them sleeping. So early morning, if you visit, any, I mean, not necessarily temples. If you go to any, big building, any hotel, and if they have these kind of two projections, you will always find pigeons resting there. And that's how the name has come, Kapoth Palli. It's very interesting to know this. Yeah. Okay. So this, we are looking at the Mukh Chatushki here. Pillars are, and the detail of the carving you can see on this pillar with vegetation, Ghat Pallava. We spoke about this in great detail last time. And pillar bases, you can see, I mean, these Ghat Pallavas are there at both ends, at the base and on the top also. Just above these, look, you can see these Tarangit potikas, these are called, or the brackets, the striated or the wavy kind of brackets you can see here. Okay. Then this is the ceiling of the East Bay. We saw there are 4 pillars inside. So when we see 4 pillars, the mandap actually divides into 9 compartments. I'll speak about it a little later. I think then you will understand. Anyway, so you can see clearly a rosette in the center with these different petals. And so this is a samtal ceiling. In Dilwara and Kumbharia, etc., we saw it was a Nabhi Chand ceiling, whereby there was a deep, depression in the ceiling, and then it was in a dome shape. That's called a Nabhi Chand. Nabhi means we all know what is Nabhi. So it kind of simulates that particular structure. But here we are looking at a Samtal ceiling, but at the same time, different geometrical forms are interspersed with each other. So inside you have a round, then you have a rectangle here, then again you have semicircles, which are almost, they look like the 4 lotus petals to me, etc. Okay. Now we are looking at the Dwar Shakha of the Garbhagriha with you can see different Mithun couples here in various attitudes, then Patravali, the scroll motif, the chain motif, all these are the alankaran or the decorations on the Dwar Shakhas or the door. Okay. And these are the pillars that we see on the Gud Mandapa. And this is the detail I thought you will enjoy looking at this. Okay. And this is I showed you the small opening on the, on the eastern side when we are entering for the circumambulation. So this is the, top portion of that entry. So these are called the Udgam pediments. And you can see different, these are called the Chandashalas or the Gavakshas. And this is topped by a very pretty, a little larger Gavaksha pattern. Okay, and this we have seen right from the beginning, from the Barabar Hill cave, the first cave that we spoke about from Mauryan period. Then Ajanta also, this kind of a big opening is there about the door, if you recall. So these are actually, I'll talk about them a little later. Okay. So this is a decoration just about that door to the circumambulatory path. Okay. So these are some of the niches where you have the different yakshas and yakshis. In fact, the temple also houses, there is one 8-handed idol of one of the goddesses, and it is inscribed as Tarapati, engraved on leaves of the lotus throne that she is sitting on. So because of such kind of names which are given to these goddesses, which somewhere they do not concur with the Jain Yakshi names. So this is also one reason that it is construed that originally it was a Brahmanic temple. Okay. So these are the balconies that I was talking about, the projections on the, all the outer sides of the temple. So these are called the Bhadravalokans. Bhadra means anything auspicious, Avalokan means to see. So you can see through these very, very beautifully carved balconies. All right. And Mandovar is another name for the entire wall portion of the temple, which actually will include the basal moldings and the wall and this top portion also, where you have the Dandachadya, etc., etc. Okay. So here, this is the portion which is called as the Kakshasan. So this has kind of an inclined, if you enter from inside, of course, here you can see these, it has been kind of sealed from here, but probably originally it was opened and you could come out from the inner chamber of the temple and you could stand here. So this is actually a coping or a parapet for this. It's called a Kakshasan, which is kind of inclined. So this is the balustrade and this is the banister on top of this. And you will see a very pretty, this is the close-up of this. So you can see a, scroll motif on top. And then this is a kind of a lotus buds in a series, which is formed here, almost looking like Mukta Mala. And these are the, the balusters. This kind of structure we normally find on the terrace parapets, etc. So normally, in fact, most of the Khajuraho temples will have this kind of a thing. In fact, I showed you this in some of the Rajasthan temples also, not Dilwara temples, the ones I showed you before that, in Mahavir temple. And there it was not open here, there was a grid here. So that's why we used to call it, Jalvatayan. They were not Bhadravalokan because they were not open from here. There was a mesh of Jali which was covered. Okay. Then these are this is the figure you have on the shikhar of the temple. And we saw that it is a Shekri shikhar. And here Tirthankar is flanked by two Chauri bearers. And here again, we have a Yaksha figure on one of the Jangha balls. All right. And this is the original, and this has just been, put here probably at the time of restoration of the temple. This does not seem to be its original place, but all the same, you can see the grass mukha on top, the Chandrashalas or the Gavakshas, and it almost simulates the Dwar Shakhas of a temple. So in that sense, sometimes when you look at these niches, they are temples by themselves. And anyway, they are the, whatever we see inside them, they are the Parivar Devtas or they are called the Avaran Devtas. All right. So in fact, if not the same status, but definitely they are accorded that, very high status in the whole gambit of this sculptural organization of the temple. So with this now we will come to Devghar, which is Devgarh rather. It is in, of course, UP, very close to Lalitpur, and I'm sure some of you may have even visited this temple, and built between 8th to 17th century. And there are actually many temples, almost it's a group of 31 Jain temples there. And it's a protected site by ASI, and it is being managed by, of course, the local northern circle of ASI, which is placed in Lucknow. And it, in fact, ASI also maintains an archaeological museum at the site, which kind of houses all different kinds of sculptures, which have actually thousands of sculptures have been found from this place. And this is the enclosed compound wall. And some part of it was made much, much later. And it is totally, covered with all kinds of sculptures, mostly you know, most of the temples are enclosed inside this enclosure wall. Okay. So this is basically the layout plan of all those 31 temples that we are talking about. Okay. And there are some architectural fragments also of post-Gupta period which are found, which kind of attests that the time period of all these temples. So we can see that a group of these temples, 25 to 31, are clustered together, and 1, 2, and this one, 10 are somehow scattered away. But mainly these are the main temples that we have inside. And this temple 12 is the largest here. And then adjoining this is temple 15. So these are the temples which are most interesting to study in that sense. Otherwise, most of the temples you will find here are flat roofed, or even if there is superstructure, it was built much later, and it does not look like anything that we know about, probably a Shekri Shikhar or a Latina Shikhar. It's a different kind of, some kind of dome-like structure is there on top of the temple, etc., etc. Okay. Okay. These are all scattered all over, and they are all of different. What we are looking at actually is that enclosure wall, and look at the wealth of sculptures which is there on which is embedded on this wall. All these are dated later than the Hindu temples. That's what we know from. And there are two distinct periods that we assign the temples to. One is the early medieval period, and the other one is the mature medieval period. All right. So during the Islamic iconoclastic, attacks, etc., that these temples were really badly devastated. And this was again compounded by the growth of vegetation and neglect of maintenance, etc., etc. What you see now, they are in pretty much better shape, I will say. Okay. Okay. So this is the very old photograph, which was actually taken by ASI in early 20th century, 1918. That's when this picture was taken. And in 1959, there were a lot of robbers who looted several Jain temples and images, and even cut off the heads and arms and etc. of many idols of this group of temples. So actually, this actually resulted in the Jain community of the area taking all the precautionary action, and they set up a temple committee which kind of oversees. Of course, now it is all under ASI, but they also oversee the protection of these monuments, and the committee works at improving the ambience of the entire place, etc. Okay. So there is this extravagance of sculptures and intricacies is actually very much similar to what we saw in Gwalior, those rock temples around the Gwalior fort. And these temples are also around the fort, in fact. Okay. And they are scattered, in fact, on both sides of the paths along the gate if you visit this site. And thousands of temples have been embedded on the walls surrounding the complex. And so large number of idols have been found, and it is also attributed to the fact that probably this was a sculptor's workshop, and there were sculptures which were being supplied to other sites or other sites where Jain temples were being built, etc., etc. And that's why, because such exuberance or large quantity of sculpture is not found anywhere else in, I mean, such concentration of these sculptures. Okay. So this is the compound wall that we were looking at up till now. So this is, yeah, the enclosure wall. And you have inside all the different temples which are housed inside this temple wall. And this temple wall, I mean, this enclosure wall has been extended in modern time also. All right. And in fact, again, I would say it is, I'm sure there was a workshop here, sculpture workshop, from where all the sculptures were getting, they were being supplied to different sites, etc. So one question arises as to why Devgarh emerged as the very big center for learning, and especially for Jains, because we have a lot of Brahminical temples also from Devgarh. The most famous is the Shaftar temple, the Panchayatan temple. Okay. So there are mainly 4 reasons which are attributed to this. Number one, of course, there was a developed and collective patronage of Jain Sangha in this, particular region, without much royal patronage. So it was the Jain Sangha which was supporting all this activity. Then it was also a very important center of the Saraswat sadhana. Okay. Which means that education and religious learning, it was very much part of the everyday routine of people around here. And so it is further attested by the presence of a lot of acharyas, upadhyayas, sadhu, sadhvis, bhattarakas, etc., who and the Jain Sangha. All right. And then because of this, we get lot of Saraswati figures from this area. And sometimes you find Saraswati icon standing at par with the Tirthankara image. And it is, because it is accorded that very high status out here. Okay. And then we also see some innovations, although they are all Digambar temples, but we see some innovations like the sculptures of Bharat and Bahubali, which normally you do not find at many other Jain sites. We saw some at Ellora, of course, I showed you. Yeah. So these are the various reasons which are, attributed to this being such a large Jain center and so many temples that have come to us. So the most of the temples that we will look at are not of a very big or large dimension. Okay. So of the extant temples that have come down to us, mostly they belong to 10th to 12th centuries. All right. So earlier ones, very few, like the temple 11, 12, 28, etc., etc. So they are mostly with just front porch or without a sanctum or without any, superstructure, etc., etc. Okay. So first temple that we are going to look at is, of course, the Trikuta, temple number 15. So as I have already mentioned to you, temple number 15 is not the name of the temple. This is the number given by the ASI. All right. So this is a Tripurusha Prasada. Tripurusha Prasada means there are three sancti. All right. Which kind of share a common mandap here in the center and the entrance porch also. And then there are 3 antaralas for, corresponding to each sanctum. Let's look at the map here first, then you will understand it better. Yeah. So when I say Tripurush Prasad or Prasada or Prasad, rather, Prasad, sorry. And so it has 1, 2, 3 sanctum, okay, and a common mandap in the center and a common entry porch here and the Chatushki or the Mukh mandap here. And you can clearly see these are all open from here, again, Bhadravalokans. And see, if you have these 4 pillars in the Mahamandap here, so how it is divided, it is dividing this entire space into 9 compartments now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's how that concept of Nav Chauki that we have been looking at most of the Dilwara temples or other Jain temples or some Brahminic temples also. So, and see, these are the ceilings that we were looking at of Nav Chauki. So each compartment, or these are the, so in that sense, you have 9 compartments or 3 bays, horizontally and vertically, both. Okay, so this is what I meant by that. Okay. So although it is, earlier than the other famous temple, temple number 12, but, for stylistic reasons, some, historians claim it to be, about 2 decades later than the temple 12. Okay. And this is dedicated to Adinath. And here you can see the very simple basal moldings. It's also very important, actually. We will not get into why each molding is so important and what does it mean, because I think it is beyond the scope of what. So this again, you have the same set of moldings here, and you have small Chandrashala here also. So a row of Chandrashalas will be here. And this is the Kapot Palli that I was talking about. So this portion here, so it is like this, and then there is a space here for some puppets, etc., to rest here. Okay. Okay. So these are some of the pillars that I thought I will show you. These are the Gud Mandap pillars. It is actually, this temple is in a highly dilapidated condition. So not all the parts of the temple are intact, actually. Okay. So mandapa ceiling is of course flat, and there are 12 pilasters which have these ghat pallavas at the base and on the top, etc. Almost the same pillar types that we saw earlier. But the Mool Pratima that you have inside the Garbhagriha, it's really very, very beautiful. It's a seated image of Mool Nayak Neminath. So although on the, some of the inscriptions say that probably it was dedicated to Adinath, but the Mool Pratima that we find here, so most of the historians are of this opinion that the temple actually belonged to Neminath. So this particular image of Neminath is almost, it kind of brings back the memory of the Buddha Sarnath. It almost, it is comparable to that, the kind of, Shantarasa or the bliss that you can see on the face of the Tirthankar, and very, very sensitive modeling and very serene expression, with very slight smile on his face, long ears, long limbs, etc., perfectly proportioned, introspecting. It's, in the gaze is introspecting, or, pointed towards the tip of the nose, etc. So this is one of the most beautiful sculptures that we will look at.
Okay, I found this on the web for whereas Sri expression that you find with very slight smile on his face.
Okay. I don't know what was that. Sorry. Of course, he's sitting on a Singhasan here. There is a chakra in the center. Chakra is also one of the attributes of Neminath. It's Shankh or Chakra, or sometimes both you will find. Yeah? Okay. So now we will come to another, it is the largest temple, temple number 12. It is seen here inside the this compound wall here. Okay, and you can see part of the shikhar here. So all these temples, and especially this temple, is a kind of testament that how prosperous Jain community was, which lived in this particular region, etc. All right, so this is a temple which is dedicated to Shantinath. All right, And there are very few temples here which have a proper shikhar. And as I said, and I showed you also, most of them are flat roofed, etc. All right. So when we look at this flag on top of the temple, we know it is in active worship even today. All right. So, yeah, Shantinath actually was also venerated for bringing peace to the household or in the community. So we find lot of Shantinath temples in this particular area. All right. So we know this is a relatively later addition. And so original structure is probably this one. And this Manstambha that we have in front of it. There is, a Yakshi figure at the base, probably 8-armed or 12-armed. And here on top, you have Tirthankar images on all the 4 sides, etc. Okay. So you can see the wall, the Jangha wall has these latticed or jali windows here. And this is a Rekha Shikhar or a Latina Shikhar. You don't find those small spires or shikhars on. And you can see this is a Pancharatha. And the same plan of the Jangha is going up, 1, 2, 3. This is the central offset, which is called the Bhadra, Pratiratha and Karna. And similarly, you will have on this side, on all the 4 sides. And this is called the Shukanasi or the main, offset which you have normally above the antaral, always. This is, so Shuka is parrot. So it is almost in the shape of a parrot protruding from the face of the temple. So that's why the name is Shukanasi. Here it is called. Okay. Okay. So this is the main temple that is there. And this is north here. Okay. So this is which side this will be. It's a west facing temple. And this is again a Sandhar Prasad. These are the smaller niches, etc. you have on the surrounding wall. So this is an open Pradakshina path that you have here all around the temple. And these are the Pancharatha plan, I said, because there are 5 offsets on the Garbhagriha plan. 1, 2, 3, and 2 more this side. So each side has these 5 offsets. Okay. So I think it's very clear. Look, when you look at this, this is where the antaral is. So now this is the original plan. And these are probably later additions, some of them. And it can, probably it was, it could be Sarvot Bhadra, because you can see some remnants of some steps on all the 4 sides. Probably it was entered on all 4 sides, and it could be seen from all 4 sides. But right now it is just, from western side that you can enter. Okay. And these are, of course, the basal moldings that, again, I wanted you to see. Very, very simple. Unlike the later moldings that we saw, some of the Dilwara temples also, how ornate and how well decorated they were. So this is the curvilinear shikhar that you see, Pancharatha shikhar topped by an amalaka and a kalash and a fruit on top, and a supi sometimes there, and there is this flag, Jain flag on top. And this is the Shukanasi that I was talking about. This again has the Tirthankara image and different decorations. So we know that below this is the antaral or the vestibule. This is the connecting part of the 2 different sections of the temple, the Garbhagriha and the Mahamandap. So Amalaka, so Amala, actually this is also the reason you have such huge, placements of these, this particular fruit here, because when a person reaches here and when it kind of, he ascends to this height, he is devoid of all the taints, all the, all the impurities. And that's why this is a kind of a symbolic representation, the Amlaka, or it is Amlisar also it is called, the essence. All right. So this is the importance I thought I will tell you. So these are some of the walls. This is the south ambulatory wall. So this is the open compound that we saw outside. And these are the latticed windows and very shallow niches you have. These are not, the modeling is not very deep. So very low relief work, I would say. And these are the Udgam pediments that I talked about, which are nothing but a cluster of different Chandrashalas put together in this decorative, kind of motif here. And here at the base, again, you have some of the niches where you have Yaksha, Yakshi figures. So the typical, feature of this temple is that all the yakshas and yakshi, not yakshas really, all the yakshis and the tirthankars are placed here, and they are all labeled. So, and they are all as per the text Tilion Patti, which has come down to us, and they actually most of the time they tally with the names of the yakshis, which are corresponding to their respective jinas. Okay. And this is the, pillar where there was a, the original pillar where we got the inscription of the temple from the King Bhoj's time. Okay, and this is of course a very nicely made pratihara figure or chauri bearer, as I will say, because in one hand he's holding a chauri and in this hand he's holding a flower. So sometimes they are also called as, Indra and Upendra on the two sides of the door frame. Okay. So this is what I meant when I said that the, Yakshi figures here, they are all inscribed and they are always placed below their respective tirthankars that they, they attend to. Okay. So this is the door frame that you see of the mandapa, which is very, very lavishly carved, which is definitely of a little later period of 11th century. So that is why you see here a Tirthankar image and you have a Yakshi image here in the center. And looking at this, sometimes, it was said that probably the temple was dedicated to Adinath, because because we know that this was a later addition to the temple, we know that it is not so. Okay. So here you have different goddesses. You have Saraswati, Lakshmi, Ambika, etc. placed here. You have the 16 auspicious dreams here. You have Tirthankar images sitting and standing. And then you have the Navgraha images here. All right. Okay. And Ganga Yamuna images are also there at the base. So this is the Shantinath image that you have in the center, which it has, the temple has 5 inscriptions that have come down to us, which says that this temple belongs to Shantinath. In the Garbhagriha, this image is still present. All right. And it is datable to 11th century, this particular image. Okay. In fact, there are 4 images of Ambika which have come down to us. 2 are inside and 2 are outside. Then there are these some other temples that I thought we will look at, and these Chhatri kind of structures have been built much later. So these are some of the flat roofed temples that we are looking at. So here you can see the base is original. Probably the superstructure was added later. Then this is another temple in the complex with the, sorry. Yeah. So here you can see there's this dome-shaped, this is a much later addition. These sculptures are, of course, original, and this is the detail of this particular portion of the temple that I wanted to show you. And this this area is also very important when we are looking at the temple. So For most part, the deity that you see in this area also, sometimes it gives you a clue as to what deity the temple may be affiliated to. Okay, so here, of course, you can see a Tirthankar image sitting in the center, to standing, to here sitting again. Okay. So here you can see again, some have this kind of a shikhar, and you can see a huge Kirtimukha on top here. And these are some of the flat-roofed temples that have come down to us. So another sculptural, archaeological find which is there are a lot of these pillars that have been found at this site. These are the Manstambhas or the Kirti Stambhas with Yaksha, Yakshis and Tirthankaras. They adorn the bases of the pillars, and on top also sometimes you will find Yakshi figures also on top, but for most part you will have Tirthankara images. Okay. So here, of course, you have Chakreshwari here with her attributes very clear. You can see a small figure here in the corner if you care to, with the pointed nose. So these are some of the small indicators how you can identify the image. Is there some disturbance coming? Okay. So this is, of course, another image that I'm trying to show you. Here you have the Yaksha image and the Yaksha image at the base. And with this ghanta, or the bell kind of decoration on pillars was also very prevalent at, in the area during this period. There some disturbance here? Okay. So there are these lot of these Manstambhas. Sometimes you will also have acharyas or upadhyayas figure carved on them, and there are a lot of inscriptions that have come down to us from here. So you have Padmavati Yakshi at the base here. You can see with this snake hood, and on top probably I don't see a snake hood here. Another Tirthankar here and a grass mukha here. Yeah. So these are all numbered, these pillars, and you can see a pair of pillars. Again, you have the chain and the bell motif here, and we will see one temple which has a very beautiful. Oh, this image has kind of gone bad. Anyway, I think we saw this earlier. So this is, of course, I was trying to show that one pillar which was there just next to, Brahmanic, the Telia Mandir in this area, Devgarh. That was in Gwalior. This I'm showing you from Devgarh, temple number 2. Okay. So you have Bharat Muni here, almost, supplicating at the feet of Bahubali figure here. Okay. And I will show you one more image. I wanted you to see this figure actually. Okay. This is temple number 19. Here you have, this is a three tirthi, pata, whereby you have 2 Tirthankars here, and you have Saraswati standing here on the same pedestal. So such was the importance given to this particular goddess, because we know Saraswati is supposed to be a personification of knowledge. She's the Jinvani, and she's also the Shruta Devta, and she's given a very, very honorable position in Jain pantheon. Okay. And this is another Saraswati figure, I think you must have seen. Okay. So this Bharat Bahubali I have shown you. So this is also a typical feature of Devgarh temples. Not very many Bharat and Bahubali figures have come down to us. So these are some more sculptures. This is Ambika. And there is a stark, contrast between these two sculptures. This one, if you see, it is probably of Gupta period. It has those kind of, very sinuous lines, very highly modeled. Almost it looks like, in the round, which means it can almost be seen from all sides. So it is in high relief. Whereas this particular sculpture, probably of a later date, which has a very, very crude kind of rendering. Then these are some very beautiful sculptures of Suparshanath, Parshanath, etc., that have come down to us. Very, very elegantly carved in pink, buff color, sandstone, perfect proportion, almost reminiscent of Gupta idiom. Okay. So with this, now we come to the next temple. This is Arang. Arang is a place in Chhattisgarh. It is a very small town east of Raipur. Okay, so not many may have heard about this. Why I wanted you to see this one? Because we spoke about Bhumij temple. I spoke about the North Indian temple, the Nagra temple. There are Latina, there are Shekhri Shikhar which have, and the third one was the Bhumij, whereby each side of the temple is divided into one quadrant, and there is a central Latina, and then each quadrant is divided into these miniature shikhars, both horizontally and vertically. They are placed like this. Yeah, and this plan actually rises right from the bottom. Okay, the same plan is followed right till the end, till the Griva portion of the temple. Okay, and that's why most of the time you will have these temples as having a star-like, layout plan. It will almost look like a star on the ground, if you will see, because all the moldings which are there, they also have the same kind of, projections. So this is, you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So it is actually a Saptaratha plan, Saptaratha with 3 anga. So 1, 2, and 3, and 2 in between also. All right. So we will call it a Saptaratha plan. And when you have these kind of temples, they almost look like star-like pattern they form. Okay. So initially, probably it was built of bricks and then later repaired, although some of the sculptures which you see inside are made of stone. Okay. So there is, of course, a lot of damage that has happened to this temple. This is, I'm trying to show you some of the sculptures in the niches here. And this is, of course, the high basal moldings that you have. And this is the Jangha portion here. Okay. So the temple also shows some, signs of intentional damage also. And, there are some erotic imagery also that you will find on this temple. Okay. So this is again the detail of. Okay. So here are some of the erotic imageries. Why I'm telling you this? Because we will talk about them later. So inside the Garbhagriha, there is a Tritirthi Jina images, which are Pata, which is there, which has the sculpture of Ajit Nath, Neminath, and Shreyans Nath. And we know them because of the pedestal that their cognizances are there, and also from the inscription. Okay. So with this, we have pretty much covered all the other temples, and now we are going to concentrate on the Khajuraho group of Jain temples. And this is a Jain temple complex in Chhatarpur village in Khajuraho. And most of them are built between 10th to 13th century. And quite a few of them, in fact, are painted now today from outside. And so most of the sculptural program, they it gets subdued. But these temples are relatively new. you can see there is still active worship going on, and the superstructure also is very much different. In fact, if you have been to, this is a typical, structure you will find in the Orcha Jhansi area. In Orcha, if you visit, most of the those chhatris or even some of the temples have this kind of a superstructure, okay, which is very typical feature of this area of a later period. All right. So there are two main groups of temples in Khajuraho. There is Western group of temples, which is of course more often visited by people, which have the famous temple, the Lakshman temple, or the Kandariya Mahadev, the Vishwanath temple, Devi Jagdambi temple, or Varha temple, Chitragupta temple. All those temples are on the western side. So what we are looking at is the group of Jain temples in the eastern side. All right. And the most important temples, these that have come down to us, there are three temples. The fourth one, Shantinath, is okay. But the Parshvanath temple, the Ghantai temple, and the Adinath temple. Okay. So this is, of course, the picture which was taken in 1885. So this is how it was looking at that time. So first we are going to learn and look at some of the beautiful sculptures and the beauty of Parshvanath temple. Most ornate of all the Jain temples which are present in this particular complex, almost as beautiful, I would say probably more beautiful than the most renowned Lakshman temple of the Western group, which almost the same time, Samkaleen, both the temples are there. And so therefore, there are a lot of common elements that you will find between this temple and the Lakshman temple, of course, with few variations, etc. So there is an inscription on the left door jamb of the temple, which kind of records that what kind of gifts and endowments of were given, and there are different names of the gardens also are there by someone called, the name also is there, it's Pahila, the name is there, and it further goes on to say that he was being graced by the king himself, Dhanga. Dhanga was the king, the son of Yashovarman. Yashovarman is the most powerful king of the Chandela dynasty, who was instrumental in making the Lakshman temple. So this particular inscription has come down to us 1011 Vikram Samvat, okay, which corresponds to 954 AD, and which is also the time of the Lakshman temple. All right. So it talks about this temple as the Jinanath. If you see here, it is written in Devanagari script. So some of it even I could make out as to what is written here. You can read the date also very clearly. Veer Samvat 1011 here. Okay. So it's interesting actually to get access to these primary sources, so that there is no doubt. So the inscription is dated 954 AD, and it describes about the Pahila as a devotee of Jainism, and it also states that he was held in great esteem by the King Dhanga himself. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so dedicated to Parshvanath, we all know this. The different gardens are, mentioned in that inscription, which I spoke about earlier also. So they are built around that time only, and you can see this is the detail of the shikhar. There are, 2 levels of the Uru Shringas and the 3 levels of the other minor Shringas that you can see, these minor spires that I'm talking about. And this is the wall portion of the temple, and you can see clearly it is divided into 3 beautiful, registers or compartments. So in a receding order. So this is the tallest, this is little less than this, and this is the smallest of the 3, etc. Okay. So what is very clear from here, this is the entrance, of course, and the mandapa is here. This is the antral. You can see the Shukanasi here, and the main Shekhri Shikhar here. And this is the backside of the temple. And we will find out that, in fact, there is another shrine at the back also. And that's why it kind of, instead of being a square temple, it is a rectangle. The whole temple looks has that rectangular shape. And if you look at these different spires or the shikhars or the minor shikhars, it is, the clustering of these, as they're called the shringas, it almost, kind of ascends towards the main manjari here, as we call it, the main one in the center. It kind of, accentuates, the soaring effect of this. Because mostly we know that these shikhars were actually, they were trying to simulate the Mount Kailash or Mount Mandar. And it seems that they kind of denote the different, chotis or the shikhars of these mountains. And such is the depiction of this. Okay. So this progressive ascent that you see and the, descent, it kind of, it's very beautiful, I would say. Yeah. So I have been using, this is the detail of the shikhar I'm trying to show you. Very, very beautiful. You can see it from a very close quarter here. So I'm sure you must all be wondering, I'm using this word Gavaksha very often. Huh? These are the, Chandrashalas, I have been calling them, or they are also called the Gavakshas. And the shikhar is made of these minor Chandrashalas or the Gavaksha figures in, different, combination, permutation and combination. Sometimes you will have Ardha Chandrashala, going like this. And then there'll be a small offset, and then same pile is going up like this. So what is the meaning, and why is temple so much, always decorated with these Gavakshas or the Chandrashalas? Chandrashala we call because of the shape. But Gavaksha is the, term which is given to it. And a lot of people confuse it with saying that it means Go Aksha, or Go means cow, or Aksha is the eyes, the eyes of the cow. But, sometimes you may agree with it, because if you look at these motifs, probably it will look like the eyes of the cow. But actually speaking, that's not the meaning of Gavaksha. Gava actually is the plural of Go, which means the rays of the sun. Okay. And the ray as well as the sun is called Go in Sanskrit. And first part actually it means the sun or the ray, and Aksha means the axle or the pivot or wheel or curve or an eye also. Okay, so this is how it is. This is the etymology of the word. So it is not basically, when we talk about the sun or the rays, it is, although it is patterned in the shape of a, window. Yeah. And we say Gavaksha arch or Gavaksha window, but it is not to admit the rays of the sun into the temple. All right. And the image, because the windows are closed and solid. So there is nothing that can enter the temple from here. So then what is the purpose of this? So the purpose of this is that the supreme principle, okay, in the Garbhagriha is the source of light. It is not that the light is entering from outside. It is the light of the divinity inside the Garbhagriha, which is kind of spreading in all the four directions. And when you are doing the pradakshina of the temple, or there are parivar devtas on those niches that you find, or the avaran deities, they are all, bathing in this light which is emanating from the Garbhagriha. And so is the devotee. He is also becoming part and parcel of this whole experience. All right. So this is the basic reason of putting these gavakshas in, and you will find them in all the different parts of the temple. All right. So this is the luminous, very luminous nature of the divinity which is there, which kind of penetrates this solid masonry work that we see of the prasad. All right. So I just thought it's very important for me to make you understand this. Yeah, okay. So, okay, let's see. I told you there are these 3 registers here. But what is different from other temples that we have seen? There is no, opening here. There are no balconies or bhadravalokans. Although there are some small latticed, windows here, which are actually you cannot stand there. You can just look through them. Okay, there are small openings that you will see here. Besides these, there is no opening here on all the 3 sides. And this is the reason that this temple has a greater wealth of sculptures as compared to other temples of Khajuraho. Okay. And this here, of course, you can see very clearly, this is the Mukh Chatushki on 4 pillars. Chatushki means 4. Mukh means the entrance from where you are entering. And these are the different parts of the temple as we go inside. Okay. And of course, I will not spare you without having gone through the plan of the temple, which will help you to understand the making of this temple and how it looks. Yeah. So you can see it is we are entering from here, Mukh Chatushki, Mandap, the Garbhgriha, and these are the small jalakas that you are seeing on the, outside of the temple. And these are the offsets. Yeah. And what we are noticing here, there is another shrine at the back. Yeah. And there is an entrance here. So this is why this almost looks like a rectangle rather than normally we find that because a square is always considered as the ideal, shape to have a temple. But this temple looks like a rectangular temple. Okay. And there is this inner ambulatory path you can see easily. And you can see it is a Saptaratha temple. 1, 2, 3. Here, this side, and 1, 2, 3, this side, and this is the center. So it is not even 3 Anga one. It is 3 Anga temple, which means it has the main Bhadra, then Ratha, then Karna. And there are 2 offsets in between also. There is Pratiratha and then there is Pratikarna. And in between, then again, you have those beautiful Salilantars. Okay, fine. Okay. And this, of course, I wanted to again emphasize the beautiful shikhar of this temple. And you will find lot of images tucked away here. You can see an acharya and a pupil, in discourse here also. And of course, here you have deity, god and goddess seated here. There are some Sura Sundari figures here. You can see some erotic figures here also here. And we will talk about them later. Okay. So we are looking at the elevation of the temple here. These are the basal moldings here. Yeah. It is on a platform. So that's the Jagati. Then you have the Adhishtan molding. These are the Vedibandh molding. So why do we say Vedibandh? Because it almost kind of clasps, it kind of arrests the main Vedi which is there. It is always in this order that you will find most of the North Indian temples. Whereas we will see when we talk about South Indian temples, they are almost in, straight. So if you draw a plumb line, they are all in straight line. Whereas in North Indian temples, there is always this kind of an ascent which is there. So these are the Vedibandh moldings, and then these are the 3 registers of the Janghas. Then of course, you have these more set of Kapotpalis here, and these are called the Tilakas here, and these are topped by these minor shikhars here, and so forth. And why I'm showing you this here, look at this niche here. So these are the Vedibandh moldings where you find these niches, and many a times you will find lots of goddesses and gods. Sometimes in some temples you will have Ashtadikpalas in all the 8 directions in these Vedibandh niches, or you will find Yakshi images. So here we have Saraswati, the beautiful Saraswati image here. Okay. This is the detail that I wanted you to see. Okay. So here, as I said, in all the 3 directions, you have Ashtadikpalas, on different offsets of the temple. Here we are looking at Ishan, who is the god of northeast. Yeah. So, despite Jain affiliation of this temple, it bears lot of kinship to the other, Brahminical temple of the area, like the Lakshman temple, etc. And it displays a very, very predominance of the Vaishnav themes on the temple walls, like Lakshmi Narayan, or Shiva Parvati, Ram Sita with Hanuman, or Balram with Revati, Kama with Rati, etc., or Sita in Ashok Vatika. So there are all these different sculptures that you will find on the walls of these Jain temples also. So there are these intermingling influences that you will see. Okay. So on the top register, you will find the Vidyadharas. These are the celestial beings, which are normally shown in flying stance or dancing. All right, this is the south wall of the Parshana temple that we are looking at. All right, so there are a lot of Hindu imagery. You can see Shiva, you can see Vishnu here, etc. And of course, there are Sura Sundaris always, accompanying the gods. And in these Salilantaras, or in these, recesses, you will find these Vyala figures. All right, and we will talk about these also. You have Vyala figures having all different kinds of, composite figures with different kinds of faces. But most of the time, the body of these Vyalas are that of a lion or of a Singh. Okay. So here you can see again some more discourse happening. So this was a very, very popular theme, I would say, at that time, depiction of the acharyas, sitting in front of the Sthapnacharya and delivering their lecture, etc. So here you will see the Ashtadikpalas. You can see the Ashtvasus also here. Do you see this? Ashtvasu, bull-faced. So Vasus are attendant deities to Indra, actually, and they represent the Panchbhutas, the 5 materials that this whole world is made up of, and 3 other sun, moon, and stars. So each Vasu depicts one bhoot out of the Panchbhutas, and that's why there are Ashtbhutas. So along with the Ashtadikpalas, you have depiction of, you can see one here and one on this side also. And you can also see a figure of Agni Dev here. He can be recognized with this long beard. Normally he, sports, and a kamandalu in this one side. And in these main niches, you can find 2 figures of the Yakshis, etc. Okay. And of course, the beautiful Sura Sundaris, they are there in thousands of numbers. And in fact, again, I would say they actually bring all the beauty to most of the Khajuraho temples, etc. and they are decked with all kinds of ornaments, and their hair, ear, arms, waist, etc. And extreme, flexion of their body actually imparts a lot of aestheticity, I would say. So this is the southern facade of the temple. You have Lakshmi Narayan here, all right, and also there is Balram here. You can see. So Balram is always depicted with, holding a, plow or a hull in one hand, and he's also mostly has a snake canopy over his head. And you can see this particular Naika, applying kajal in her eyes. So there are different Naikas and these Surasundaris in their different postures or bhangimas, as we call them. Sometimes they are writing a letter, sometimes they are painting a wall, looking in the mirror, or, sometimes, that kind of pain is visible on their faces when there is a scorpion which has, reached some part of their body, or there is a monkey, pulling out one of their, some garment, etc., etc. So all these actually are there. Okay. So of course, this I'm trying to show you Lakshmi Narayan here, and here you have Ram and Sita here, and you have a small figure of Hanuman here. All right. And you have a Vyala figure here in the center. So these are also called the Mithuna figures. You must have heard me, calling out this word also very often, Mithun. What is the meaning of Mithun? And why are they on the temple walls? What is the purpose? So Mithuna, why? Jains, the 5 main code of conduct, they will never kind of warranty this kind of depiction. So why it is there on Jain temple walls? It is often asked. So first, let me explain to you what is the meaning of Mithun. So Mithun is nothing but, let's say, just as a man is, in close embrace of her beloved woman or something like that, he knows nothing more or nothing less. So also does the, when the Atma or, kind of becomes one with Paramatma, or the spiritual man becomes one with the Paramatma. He is, embraced with this, ultimate spirit or Paramatma, knows nothing more, or without or within. So this is the true form in which all his desires are satisfied. The spirit and the whole of his desire, he has no more or any more desire or pain left in that sense. So this state, which kind of like a man and a woman in close embrace, is a symbol of moksha. It symbolizes, all right. Just, there is a symbolical depiction of Atma becoming one with Paramatma. And this is supposed to be the final release of or a reunion, all right, of the main 2 principles, the Purush and the Prakriti, all right. Purush is, of course, the essence, and Prakriti is the nature, all right. So this particular symbol is carved on the door jambs. We have seen a lot of Mithuna figures are there of the Garbhagriha on the walls of the temple, and repeatedly and in many forms in which their limbs are together, or they are in close embrace. So the name of this particular conjoint symbol of Purush and Prakriti as moksha is called the Mithuna figure, all right, the state of being a couple. And on a lighter note, if I tell you that we have a Bollywood actor, Mithun Chakravarti, so I'm sure it must be meaning something good. Otherwise, no parent is going to, name their a child as something which has anything, derogatory in that sense. All right. So one should not get averted to these kind of concepts. But there are, different classes of mithunas also. We will not get into that right now. So what we are looking at here are the lavanyamay mithunas, where, the deities, they are sometimes in close embrace, but there is no suggestive sexual activity between them. Okay. All right. So then we are looking at the famous Sura Sundaris on these temple walls. I showed you this one. She's applying, collyrium in her eyes. And then here she's, tying nupura or the ghungru in her feet. All right. So why Sura Sundaris on temple walls? And that too on Jain temples. So of course, we all know there is a tremendous Brahminical influence that is coming here on these, in the construction and in ornamentation of these temples. So Sura Sundaris, or the celestial beauties, Apsaras, Nartakis, Yakshinis, Digdevis, these are the different names that we, call them by. So it is believed that they are the active power, and her image is it is kind of an embodiment of movement. If it is Apsara, she is the movement in the atmosphere. As Yakshini, she is the movement in the vegetation. As I spoke to you earlier, that Yakshas and Yakshis were, the deities of the vegetation, or the Shalbhanjikas also, for that matter. Nartaki, she is the movement inside the body of a man when I say human being, and is shown as a dancer. All right. So her iconography kind of describes her various places, and they are not really sharply defined as such. So her associations, like, with the bow or the tree, they are called the Shalbhanjikas or the Amrbhanjikas, or the flowering, vines, etc., etc. So they are known as Yakshini. So these celestial beauties, they belong to the Avaran, deities. All right, the surrounding deities of the main deity, which is there in the center, and their number is very, very large, and the figures are repeated on the temples all around the walls, to either side of all the gods that also we have seen. All right. So celestial beauty is but one of the names of the Shakti, it is believed, carved on the temple walls. It is the energy, it is the primordial power, it is believed, and substance of all the world, which is Maya, and Maya, which is the visible world, and it belongs to the Brahm as Shakti, and she is herself the she's imbued with all kinds of action, and that's why she is present in all of us in some form or the other. Okay, so such is the explanation given in the texts. Sorry, I think, yeah, I'm going. Yeah, okay, we saw this one. No? Yeah, okay. So now we are looking at Tirthankar image in the center, and two attending figures here, and two Sura Sundaris. She's kind of, there's water dripping from her hair. Very, very sensuous depiction. No, there's no doubt about it. Then there are these two Vyala figures on the sides. We have repeatedly seen these figures. And what is the meaning of these Vyalas? So it is the group of, lion and men, which is, carved on these temple walls, almost in the round, almost they are emerging out of the temple walls, and the body of, it shows man. Normally it shows two men. One is at the base and one is kind of riding the Shardul. All right. So it is actually one man, he approaches the center under the threat of the lion, and the other one is, he draws out his sword and he kind of tries to ride the Shardul for that matter. So on the temple, this monster, as it is called, the Shardul, it is a mythical figure, as we call it, who's, always in a lot of rhythm and gallop, actually. So he is composed of a rhythm, and he is the embodiment of lion, or the lordly power, which of a beast, actually, and whose Prakriti, Shakti, again, the same thing it denotes, and it is the Vak, which is life. And the two, once first the man is trying to, fight all the passions and the desires. And then finally, when he becomes the victor. So in that sense, in a looser sense, you can also say the Shardul depicts the vasanas or the ichchas, etc. And once he has conquered them, he is able to ride the Shardul. All right. So that's why you will always find these two figures, these two men always with the Vyala figures. And these Vyala's figures can have all different kinds of faces that probably we will see here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So here you can see probably a parrot-like beak here, you can see here. And there are different. So here you find the elephant also. Elephant is also another, symbolic representation, besides many other, of ignorance, of, somebody who's devoid of knowledge. All right. So that's why here, instead of the other man, you can find an elephant here. Okay. So we have seen this, all the different divinities, yeah. And here you can see Sita in Ashok Vatika with Hanuman here, yeah, on one of the top niches, a small niche comparatively. So now we are, I think I have to rush now a little bit. So this is the elaborately carved ceiling. We are entering inside, and this is the door frame of the mandap. You can see Chakreshwari sitting here very nicely. And of course, there are these Navgrahas here. And then there is a Tirthankar image here. And there is a, different Ganga Yamuna images at the base. Okay. So this is the interior of the Parshanath. This is consisting of this sanctum here. So this is the entrance of the Garbhagriha. And you can, so we saw Chakreshwari outside, and you find Tirthankar's images here, and Ganga Yamuna here again. And of course, the 16 dreams on top here. So this is relatively a new image of Parshanath made up of black stone. This is the vestibule area, this particular. And this is the main Garbhagriha. You can enter inside. All right. So the door frame is that of 5 shakhas here, 5 stambhas are there. Okay, I think I'm going to show you a close-up. And you can see these bharvahakas. They are as if they are almost holding the ceiling on, on their backs. Yeah. The Gana figures or the bharvahakas. Yeah. And this is the rectangular ceiling that we saw in the earlier slide. This is the detail of the same door frame that we were looking at. And here, do you see this figure? What is this? There is a Vrishab here. All right, a bull figure is there. And we know that this particular frame, the Parikar, is the original one from the temple. And this image is a relatively newer image of Parshanath. So this further goes on to tell us that probably, not probably, it is almost certain that originally the temple was dedicated to Adinath and not Parshanath. And Parshanath is the later image which was installed in this Garbhagriha. Okay. And we also saw Yakshi Chakreshwari on the Lalat Bim. Do you recall that? And who is the Yakshi of Adinath, which further reinstates this particular theory that the temple was dedicated to Adinath. Okay. So here you can clearly see the Panchshakha door frame of the Garbhagriha, and this is the inside. So now here you can clearly see the Vrishab here, seated here. And this is the original Parikar frame of the image. And this is the new image that is. And here, see, you can see the Mithuna figures. You will find them everywhere in all the temples of all the ages, right? From, I speak about the early Gupta temples till date. Okay. Okay. And in fact, in the inscription also, we read that the temple was dedicated to Jinanath, which is another name of Adinath. All right. Okay, so this is the detail. So these are some more images that you find in the Mahamandapa. And here you can see that small perforated, which we saw from outside. This is from the inside, you can see that jali that we saw from outside on the wall for letting the light and air inside. So then this is, of course, some more images. Here, these are normally called the Chatur Vinshati images, where in one panel you have depiction of all the 24 Tirthankars, and probably this is the frame of another Chaturvinshati image, which is independently probably has been taken out and it is kept here. So this is what I meant. What we saw earlier was this particular portion of this whole assembly. Yeah. So this is the temple that I was talking about at the rear end of the main temple. I told you there is one shrine right at the back also. And that's how the shape of the temple becomes rectangular. So surprisingly, this particular shrine is dedicated to Adinath. All right, this is the western shrine. So we are entering from east side, and this is the small chapel which is there at the back side, which is dedicated to Adinath. All right, and this also further emphasizes that the original affiliation of the temple was to Adinath. And here again you can see Chakreshwari, Saraswati, Lakshmi, etc. sitting here. The Navgrahas, you can see beautifully carved Rahu. Yeah, and all the Navgrahas are there. 7, 8, 9 here. Okay, fine. So with this, we have finished with Parshvanath temple, which is the most elaborate and most, elaborately decorated, and it's a real treat to your eyes. And this is another temple, Ghantai temple. It's almost, we don't have anything left out of this temple, but it is important to look at this, important to see some of these structures. So this is called a Ghantai temple, where, as I mentioned earlier also, because of these bell-shaped decoration, that the chains and the bells which are decorated on these pillars here. Okay. So only the porch part and part of the mandap has come down to us. Of course, all the walls have been destroyed, etc. So this is, of course, 11th century temple, little later than Parshvanath. This is the ruined part of the temple. So you can see mainly it is used to study the various pillars and the ceilings and the door frame, which is still intact. Okay, so this is the detail of the pillars, I thought. So at the lower level, it is 16-sided, then it becomes octagonal, and then of course you have these different bands. You have the Vidyadhara figures here, almost in flying stance. They are the flying deities. That's why you will find them most of the time hovering over the Tirthankar images, or other even in Brahminical setting, you will find them, etc. So here you can see very clearly. Look at these bells and the chain motifs. They are being issued from the mouth of the grass mukha, and you can see these bulbous eyes of the grass mukha with these. Yeah. So this is the reason, and actually the size of the temple, which has which has come down to us right now, it kind of says that the original size of the temple was much bigger than the Parshvanath temple. Okay. So, and these are some of the cornice decorations and the what do you say, the ceiling decoration of the Mukha Mandapa, or the arch. Okay. So this is the Maha Mandapa, and we will also see, and this is the ceiling of the mandap. And this is the door frame which has come down to us. And you can again see the Ganga Yamuna figures, shakhas, different, floral are there, etc., etc. And this is the base of the entrance, whereby you have in the center, of course, you have the lotus stems. And then on this side, you have Saraswati figures, and these are the Gajakranta Singha. All right. So here, Singh has kind of overpowered the lion. And this is a very famous motif you will find in a lot of Orisen temples. If you have visited Konark temple, there are huge, sculptures of these Gajakranta Singhas. Okay. So this is the detail of the door jamb, and this is, of course, the ceiling is carried on 4 pillars, samtal ceiling. There are no kind of those indentations which we saw earlier in Dilwara temples. In the center, you have the Padmadal in 3 rows, and then it is enclosed by 3 squares with these scroll motif. Relatively a simpler design. And these are the Atlantid figures, at the base, these are the bracket figures of the pillars that we saw. They are called the Bharvahakas or the Bharputrakas, etc. It is, visually it appears that as if they are carrying the weight of the temple on their, backs. Okay. So this is the Adinath temple, one more temple I thought I will show you, 11th century again. Only the Garbhagriha has come down to us. This is of a much later period, that is, and this of course is the original, the Shukanasi of the temple. And you can see this is not a Shekhri Shikhar, this is a Latina Shikhar. You don't see those various shikhars or the peaks ascending and descending and finally reaching the peak here. So this is the Latina Shikhar, where in great order it is ascending. So it is Pancharatha, you can see 1 in the center, 2 this side, and 2 will be on the other side. And this is the main Mool Manjari in the center, and the big Amalaka. Okay. So this is a curvilinear Shikhar. Okay, so this is dedicated to Adinath, of course. The very name suggests that. Much smaller than Parshvanath temple. It is a Nirandha temple, which means it does not have any inner circumambulatory path. You have to come out, because most of these temples are built on high platforms. So the platform actually serves as the Pradakshina Path. You can go around the temple, or moving around this platform. So like Parshvanath temple, here also you have 3 sets of registers with different sculptures, and you have the main Bhadra niches by which house the different goddesses, Yakshi images, or sometimes even Saraswati images will be there. Then there are on top again you have the Vidyadhara images on top. Sometimes they are playing different kinds of musical instruments, etc. So here again you have the one of the Ashtvasus here, one is this. So this is a normal practice. On the karnas you will have two, and on all the offsets of the garbhagriha, thereby covering all the Ashtadikpalas. So at the bottom you have the Dikpalas, two here, and these are the two of the Ashtvasus that you can see here. And of course, filled with Surasundaris, Vyalas, etc., and the Brahminical figures, etc. So here you can see Naika looking in the mirror. She's removing a thorn. Yeah, okay, etc., etc. So this temple actually has the main 16 main, those Bhadra niches have the 16 Mahavidyas are present in those, Bhadra niches, which is a typical. So, of course, the Naikas in various poses, attitudes, etc., etc. So here inside you have, Adinath image, of course, of a much later period. This is not the original image. And you can see beautifully carved the entrance door or the Garbhagriha Dwar here. Multiple shakhas you have here. Here also you have different deities seated here. Okay. And this is the detail of the door frame. And this is the image which is there inside. He's the first of the Tirthankar, we all know. And here I just thought you will get a glimpse of the ceiling decoration also here. And of course, when you go at the back of the temple, there are some, sculptures which are lying there, and so on and so forth. So last one, of course, is the Shantinath temple, which again belongs to the 11th century, and it is still in active worship. And these are some of the other, figures. So relatively, this is a new building. So there are many, Jain temples in this complex where Shantinath temple is there, and these are some of the original sculptures that have come down to us. Okay. So this is the image in one of the walls, and this is the image of Shantinath, which is there in the Garbhagriha. Okay. And here it is one of the very coveted sculptures. It is believed that this is the sculpture of the parents of Tirthankar. You find a Tirthankar's image on top of here. And some of the temples I haven't shown you, you have all the 24 pairs of these parents on some of the temple walls. And sometimes you have all the 24 mothers of the Tirthankaras, which are depicted on temple walls. All right. Okay, so this is the another figure that you have on, outside in the mandapa. So this is Parshvanath in one of the niches. So in fact, there is an inscription here which also talks about that this particular temple was also, dedicated to Adinath. All right. So in that sense, all the 4 temples that we have seen today from Khajuraho, such was the popularity of the first Tirthankar Adinath that they were originally all dedicated to the first Tirthankar Adinath. Okay. And this is supposed to be the original sculpture of the temple, which was originally there in the Garbhagriha. So these I wanted to show, just like There are so many Brahminical, gods and goddesses on Jain temples. On other, Brahminical temples also, you will find depiction of Tirthankaras. Not to that degree or level, but definitely this one you will find on Devi Jagdambi temple in Khajuraho itself. And this one is, of course, on the Shiva temple at Bij Mandal in, at Khajuraho. So it is actually the communication between, different, communities that brought about this kind of intermingling. So, in fact, now what we can safely say that a temple is conceived from inside. No, the Garbhagriha is the main, area. It is conceived from inside, but it is viewed from outside. What kind of effect that is having about the radiating power of the deity from within, which kind of assigns the place of all the other deities and all the facets of the wall. So the inner darkness inside the human being is kind of extracted through these different gavakshas or the ghandwaras. Ghandwaras are also just the wall with a niche. You cannot see through it. That's why they are ghandwaras. They are doors, but they are closed doors. And it is only the effulgent light of the Lord which can penetrate that particular aspect in all directions. Okay. So it is it's a very common question which everybody asks. So I just thought I will sum up as to what are the different reasons that have been assigned for the erotic imagery, not only on Jain temples. Jain temples, we can just assign, probably 3-4 reasons out of these. Of course, number one is the influence of the Brahminic cult, which was, which was being practiced in with most of the population. Then, of course, the Jain, some of the Jain texts also say that Jain temples were, imbued with these kind of sculptures for protection. All right, because a lot of Vastu Shastra texts talk about these depiction of mithunas or the erotic imagery on temple walls to save them from all kinds of adversities like lightning, etc., etc. So these are some of the main reasons that have been assigned. So there was a lot of tantric influence during this medieval period, and one of the Panchamakara is also the Mithuna. So probably that was the reason. They are the representative of the general licentiousness of the contemporary society. They are there to test the sincerity of the devotee. They are depicted to train people, mostly youngsters. And there are Kama Sutra, bandhas, which are depicted to enhance fertility. These are all the different reasons. Mother goddess worship, the Shakta cult, or it is also, they are just the alankaras or the decorations, because alankars themselves also are supposed to be evil removing. That's why we are always decorating our door frames, or the females are always the very aspect of fertility. And because earliest civilizations were all agrarian civilizations, so the very concept of high yield was directly related to the fertility aspect of a woman. And that's why she was being worshipped as mother goddess. And then we spoke about Mithuna also. So the mother goddess cult, the sanction of the society of this period, because we are talking about medieval period, the feudal society, where most of the kings were not the descendants of the their fathers. They had kind of usurped the power, all right, or they had gained the throne by way of subduing the neighboring states or the weaker kings. So in order to gain, pushtis, or they believed in lot of blindly, they believed in all kinds of rituals, and most of them, they followed tantric practices, not to achieve God, but it was basically to gain lot of occult powers. Yeah, and it is from inscriptions and from lot of texts we know that these kings were followers of lot of tantrics in that area, and they were given lot of importance in these codes, etc. So, in fact, body shaming, etc., came much later, I would say, in Indian psyche. I will not even, I will not shy away by saying that probably it is an import of the, it is a colonial construct, because we know in Indian this thing, we have Manusmriti saying Yatra Naryasya Pujante Ramante Tatra Devta. So women were not an object of desire or lust, etc. They were being honored. They were they were the fertility goddess, etc. So in this tradition, I will say the sensuous and the sacred are not opposed. In fact, they are one, and they are actually, and the sensuous is seen as an integral part of the sensuousness that we see around us. Okay, so I think I have overshot today my time by 10 minutes. I'm sorry, but yeah. Let me stop sharing. Yeah, okay. Sorry. I'm sorry if I've held you back for this extra 10 minutes. Yeah.
क्या आप, इतना आश्चर्य होता है आपको बोलते हुए सुनने पर कि आप जिस उत्साह और ऊर्जा से अपनी प्रस्तुति प्रारंभ करती हैं, उसी ऊर्जा से और उसी उत्साह से बिल्कुल अंत तक बनी रहती हैं। तो ये जो है बहुत ही कम भाषणकर्ताओं में देखी जाती है, क्योंकि बाद में धीरे धीरे 2 घंटे का समय बहुत होता है, तो 2 घंटे में तो काफी ऊर्जा शरीर की क्षीण हो जाती है, और इसमें लोग काफी उसके बाद में थोड़े ढीले पड़ जाते हैं आखिर तक आते आते। लेकिन आपकी ऊर्जा जो है वो आश्चर्यजनक है, और ईश्वर ने आपको बहुत ऊर्जा दी है, और ईश्वर करे कि आपकी ऊर्जा सदैव आपके साथ में रहे, हमेशा हमेशा के लिए बनी रहे। आपने हमको पिछली बार आपका राजस्थान के ऊपर मुख्यतः केंद्रित था आपका भाषण, और इस बार आपने 3 प्रदेशों का भ्रमण करा दिया हम लोगों को एक साथ। बिहार से शुरू किया आपने, फिर उत्तर प्रदेश ले आई आप, और वहां देवगढ़ के आसपास आपने हमको भ्रमण कराया। हमको तो पता ही नहीं था कि देवगढ़ में इतने सारे जैन मंदिर भी हैं। वो सामान्यतः देवगढ़ को एक वैष्णव सेंटर माना गया है, मुख्य रूप से उसको थोड़ा हाईलाइट किया जाता है। फिर आप मध्य प्रदेश ले गए, खजुराहो और छतरपुर और रायपुर के आसपास। तो खजुराहो में खजुराहो में भी इतने जैन मंदिर हैं, और इतने सुंदर सुंदर जैन मंदिर हैं। यद्यपि शिल्प लगभग सारे मंदिरों का एक ही जैसा है, क्योंकि मुझको लगता है कि जो शिल्पी थे वो तो वही थे, चाहे उनसे जो बनवा लो, ये बनवा लो या वो बनवा लो, मंदिर तो वही हैं, और मुख्य रूप से तो प्रायः एक ही जैसे बनाए। हाँ, मूर्ति शिल्प में जरूर अंतर करते थे वो, लेकिन जहां तक वास्तु का प्रश्न है, बहुत ज्यादा अंतर तो नहीं है। आपने पारिभाषिक शब्द भी सारे बताए, इतने सारे पारिभाषिक शब्द आज नए सुनने को मिले कि आपने उसका पूरा विश्लेषण किया कि मंदिर के कौन कौन से अंग होते हैं, किसको क्या कहते हैं, संस्कृत में क्या कहते हैं और अंग्रेजी में क्या कहते हैं, दोनों को आप साथ साथ बोल रही थी। बहुत बहुत अच्छा लगा। आपके पास में अथाह सामग्री है, अभी खत्म थोड़ी हुई थी, अभी आप 1 घंटे और बोल सकती थी इसी विषय पर, और शायद और ज्यादा इससे। तो आपके पास में अथाह सामग्री है और उसको उसकी व्याख्या करने के लिए अथाह ज्ञान भी है। तो उसका भी कोई पारावार नहीं है, कि उसका कोई अंत नहीं है। तो वस्तुतः वर्षों की तपस्या के बाद में और वर्षों की साधना के बाद में इतना ज्ञान प्राप्त होता है। और आपने सच में तपस्या की है, लगता है कि आपने बहुत बहुत गंभीरता से अध्ययन किया है इस विषय को, बहुत अपने विषय को आपने बहुत गंभीरता से लिया है और उसमें बहुत गहराई से आपने प्रवेश किया है। तो उसके साथ साथ आपने बहुत सारी नई चीजें भी बताई। आपने जो इनकी प्रतीकात्मक व्याख्या की ना, बहुत सारे चिन्हों की, वो भी बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण था। आपने आमलक की व्याख्या की कि जो जिसमें मल का विनाश होता है, इसलिए उसको आमलक भी कहते हैं। यद्यपि उसे आंवला से भी लोग जोड़ते हैं कि वो आंवले की शेप की तरह होता है इसलिए, लेकिन वो आमलक की बिल्कुल ही नई व्याख्या थी। बहुत ही नया इंटरप्रिटेशन आपने दिया, बहुत अच्छा लगा। गवाक्ष की आपने नई व्याख्या की, वो भी बहुत अच्छा लगा। ये शब्द आपने बिल्कुल, गो शब्द वास्तव में वेद में किरण का वाची है, और गवाक्ष को किरणों के आने के लिए जो अक्षी के रूप में या होल के रूप में या छिद्र के रूप में बनाया जाए, उसे गवाक्ष कहते हैं। लेकिन एक इंटरेस्टिंग बात है कि शिप में हर केबिन में वो जो गोल गोल एक छेद होता है, उसको भी वो लोग बुल्स आई कहते हैं, उसको भी बुल्स आई कहते हैं। और मुझको लगता है कि ये गवाक्ष, संस्कृत का गवाक्ष और बुल्स आई, क्योंकि गो शब्द बैल का भी वाची है और गाय का भी वाची है, दोनों। तो और आंखें तो दोनों की एक जैसी होती हैं, चाहे वो गाय की हो चाहे वो बैल की हो। तो वो बुल्स आई, मुझको ध्यान आ रहा था कि ये कैसे, ये शब्द जो है, यही अभिव्यक्ति कैसे वहां तक पहुंचती है कि वो अपने शिप के जो खिड़की होती, गोल खिड़की होती है हर केबिन में, उसको बुल्स आई कहते हैं। मिथुन की आपने बिल्कुल ही नई व्याख्या की, बिल्कुल उसकी आपने आध्यात्मिक व्याख्या की, और इतने सारे उसके आपने कारण व्याख्या, एक आपने व्याख्या नहीं की, आपने बहुत सारी व्याख्याएं उसकी दी कि किस प्रकार से ये जो जहाँ पति पत्नी या पुरुष स्त्री खड़े हुए हैं, तो वस्तुतः वो किस प्रकार से सृष्टि के किन किन तत्वों को द्योतित करता है, और किस किस दार्शनिक तत्व का उससे हमको ज्ञान होता है, विवेचन करता है, और प्रतीकात्मक रूप से वो किसका है। और आत्मा परमात्मा के मिलन की बात तो आपने शुरू में ही की थी कि वो वस्तुतः उसको इस रूप में भी लिया जा सकता है, क्योंकि जो मिलन है, दो आत्माओं का मिलन, दो प्राणियों का मिलन, उसको भले ही एक को एक रूप में शरीर अलग है, लेकिन वस्तुतः आत्मा तो सबकी एक ही है, चैतन्य तो एक ही है। तो दोनों का जो हम लोगों को कम से कम हिंदी वालों को तो और भी समझ में आएगा, क्योंकि आत्मा शब्द हिंदी में तो कम से कम स्त्रीलिंग ही है और परमात्मा पुल्लिंग है। तो आत्मा और परमात्मा का मिलन ये बड़ा सुंदर लगा। और क्या कहूँ, मैं तो हर बार देखता हूँ कि मेरे पास तो धन्यवाद देने के लिए शब्द होते ही नहीं है, तो इसलिए हम बहुत बहुत आभारी हैं। हमारी ओर से आपको हार्दिक धन्यवाद, समस्त श्रोताओं की ओर से हार्दिक धन्यवाद और आभार, बहुत बहुत आभार। हम आपके हार्दिक आभारी हैं। और क्या कहूँ मैं, एक प्रकार से इतना ज्ञान होता है हम लोगों को हर बार, मुझको लगता है कि एक पुस्तक में जितना ज्ञान होता है, पूरा का पूरा एक पूरी की पुस्तक में जितना ज्ञान समाया होता है, वो उतना जो है आप 2 घंटे में प्रस्तुत कर देती हैं। तो आपको बहुत धन्यवाद। मुझको लगता है कि प्रश्नों के लिए तो अब पता नहीं आप थकी हैं कि नहीं थकी, या लोग थक गए हैं सुनते सुनते तो अब, और ऐसा मुझे लगा नहीं कि उसमें कहीं कुछ भी कोई असंगति रही हो या कुछ भी पूछने के लिए बचा हो, क्योंकि आपने उनको कहना चाहिए, जिसे अंग्रेजी में कहते हैं प्री सपोज कर लिया क्वेश्चंस को, और उनका उत्तर आपने दे ही दिया अपने भाषण में। उसको लगता है कि आपने पहले ही से अनुमान लगा लिया कि क्या इसमें पूछा जा सकता है, तो इसलिए आपने, क्योंकि वो इस तरह की दिव्य दृष्टि आपके अंदर है, और उसके बाद में आपने उनका उत्तर दे ही दिया है। लेकिन फिर भी अगर किसी को कुछ और नया सीख है तो 1-2 मिनट, 1-2 प्रश्न आप अगर चाहें तो ले सकती हैं, और अगर आप क्लांत शांत हो गई हैं तो फिर अगली बार के लिए, या आपके ईमेल पर लोग आपसे प्रश्न कर सकते हैं, आप उनका जवाब उसमें दे सकती हैं, जैसा भी आपकी इच्छा हो।
नहीं सर, आई थिंक देयर इज वन क्वेश्चन, Anchit, yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the visual delight. Ma'am, I have one question. You have shown us the images of Yakshi on the temples of Rajasthan also, and of the central India, Yakshis and Vidya Devis, etc. Now, these are also depicted on the Mandovar or on the Janga or the Vedi Bandh or on the Dwar Shakha. So my question is were they randomly placed? Was there some iconological program that was followed in their placement?
So in the text, I think Tiloy Pannati, that is the text which describes the 16 Vidya Devis. So actually it follows an order, and on the not all temples will follow that order, but some temples where all the 16 Vidya Devis. So if you want to learn about Vidya Devis, Oshia temple is the one which actually has elaborate depiction of Vidya Devis, and it follows the text to the T. All right. So if you visit that temple, you will actually get a very wide knowledge about the depiction of Vidya Devis. Yeah. There is a certain order. Yeah.
I'm doing my MPhil from Delhi University and my topic is on OSIA.
Oh, really? Okay. How uncanny is this?
Thank you.
You will be visiting, yes. Or you may have visited already. Yeah.
I have visited. Thank you.
बड़ा अच्छा संयोग है।
सर और कोई प्रश्न नहीं है? हेलो सर, समाप्त करें? और कोई प्रश्न नहीं है? सर मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ, मुझको लगता है कि एक कोई रवि कुमार जैन 2 बार जैन लिखा हुआ है, तो कोई ज्यादा ही प्रबल जैन है, वो उनका प्रश्न जरूर ले लें।
रवि कुमार, यस, यू कैन
करेक्ट। कैन आई टॉक?
यस यस।
मैं मैडम से ये जानना चाह रहा था, ये जो सारी साइट्स है, मैडम के डिस्क्रिप्शन से ऐसा लगता है कि शी हैज एक्चुअली विजिटेड देम। इज दैट ट्रू?
Yes, she has. Yes, of course she has.
Not all of them, I would say. Yeah, 95% definitely. Yeah.
But it gives the feeling that you have visited every nook and corner of the temple.
Yeah. When you visit, you better see everything.
Now we can see what you have, guided us. Accordingly, we'll see now.
Yeah. So it is. Great. Yeah. It is lot of, it kind of makes more sense when you know about the place and then you visit. Yeah.
आपने अभी डिटेलिंग इतना कर दिया ना, अब जाके देखने का अलग ही मजा होगा, ऐसा लगता है।
Yeah.
Thank you. So nice of you. Great.
अंचित जन पुनः हैंड रेज किया है।
Ma'am, I have a request. Can you suggest us some reading list after every lectures? I know it's not possible.
I will.
Like you have what result of your research of whole life.
Yeah.
Basic readings for.
Okay, I'll email it to you. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
ठीक है, अब समाहार करते हैं।
ओके सर, समाप्त करें?
हाँ।
ओके।
अर्हन्तो भगवन्त इन्द्रमहिता सिद्धाश्च सिद्धिस्थिता आचार्यजिनशासनो नतिकरा पूजा उपाध्यायका श्री सिद्धान्त सुपाठका मुनिवरा रत्नत्रयाराधका पंचे